Go back to it. This should be something that's in us. We know it. I'm going to read it to make sure it's exact. Faith, it says in verse 1, it says, now faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. This is what the ancients were commended for. Faith is something you can't see. You can't grab hold of. It's not tangible. It's not like a roast beef sandwich. Remember, I'm about to get offline. It's not like that. You can't put it in your hands. Faith is bigger than that, and it's amazing, and it's the confidence in what we hope for. Hope is beautiful. I have a hope every day for something better tomorrow. It's not that the day wasn't good today. I've had bad days. Anybody had a bad day recently? I've had bad months. I'm going to be honest, I had some bad decades, okay? You know what I'm saying? I didn't know Jesus for a long time. From 15, 14, all the way to 27 was an interesting time. Interesting for me. And so faith is that confidence of what we hope for, and assurance. I think you hear that. Assurance about what we do not see. Now remember, this is not the assurance what you want. We translate faith wrong as that, it's a hope that I get what I want, when I want, how I want. That's not how it reads. But we put that in because that's what we like to hear, right? Oh, Jesus and me, we like this. I just asked for $10 yesterday. He gave me 20. Can't wait till my next ask. I'm going to double it down. I'm going to double down. That's not what we're talking about. I'm telling you, his assurance is this. This is the problem. When you choose him, you have the assurance that you will be dwelling with him in his mansion in heaven for the rest of your life. That's his promise of assurance. How he gets you there is too bad for you. It's a different ride for all of us. Some of you are going to get there in a luxury boat, and some of us are going to roll in with a go-kart with just 3 wheels on it, leaning to the left, trying to get the thing to go with some diesel and a gasoline container. Oh, Lord, I know that's not even the right gas, but we can get there if we try. Just give me a little bit farther. I think that's probably what I'm riding in. I'm not even worried about it because I'm assurance where I'm going. I'm getting there. I know what my hope is, and it doesn't look like what I always want it to look. So when we're thinking about faith, who do you automatically, I know who I think about in faith. When you say, hey, when you think about faith, who do you think about? It's pretty quick for me, and maybe it's different for you. You could think about it in your own way, but I'm talking biblical too. Stay away from your amazing spouses, guys, because you want to get some points today. But I'm talking like, when I think biblically about faith, I go right to Abraham. It's just like, whoo, this is the guy I want to put here and go, I'm going to be a lot like that dude right there, right? And Abraham's faith was amazing. But we're going to walk through it, and we're going to see some amazing things about Abraham. And I'll put these little scriptures right here just in case you're like somebody else. But we're going to. James 2:23 says, and the scripture was fulfilled that says, Abraham believed God, had faith, and it was credited to him as righteousness, and he was called God's friend. I want to be called God's friend. Right here, dude. I want to be called God's friend. I don't need a best friend. I just want to be called his friend. Woo, I'm a friend of God. Yes, that's my dude over there. I don't even care if I'm over there. I'm not even sitting at the table with him, but that's my friend over there, right there, Jesus. And he knows my name, and he does know your name. How about Galatians 3:9? So those who rely on faith, which is us, are blessed along with Abraham, the man of faith. Dude, this guy had faith that he's called the man of faith. I'm called the man of sandwiches. You hear what I'm saying? I don't have the title I'm looking for. I want to be the man of faith, though. You know what I'm saying? This is a man of faith. This is a good title. He is a man of faith. I want to be like Abraham. So how does Abraham walk start? Because I want to tell you, because what's also, and we're going to get to, what's also like the biggest faith act you've heard from Abraham? It's the Isaac moment, right? It's the Isaac moment. Come on, that's pretty. But let's walk through this and get to the Isaac moment. If I can get a water, that'd be awesome. And let's see what we get to. Because sometimes we read this man of faith and we go back to one moment in his life, the Isaac moment, and go, oh, that man was a man of faith. And we're like, oh, well, I could never do that. Like if God showed up today and said, Simon, pick one of your 4 boys and go ahead and sacrifice them. Like, that's what you're starting with, Lord? Yeah. No. I've told Lord no many times in my life. Here's a quick disclaimer. If any voice you ever hear tells you to do that, at this time in history, it's a no. The sacrifice has been made. Jesus already went to the cross. There is no sacrifice to fulfill the law. So if you're like, well, I think he's talking to me, he is not. You don't like your kid, and we need to talk. We need to pray about that. But he's not saying that to you. I don't care how good the voice sounds. It's not. The sacrifice is completed with Jesus. Okay? Done. Done. I always got to say that sometimes. So faith, here we go. Faith always has a first step. Your faith always has a first step. For us today, what's our first step of faith? Our real first step of faith. It's not going to church for the first time or coming back to the church. That's attending an event. Okay? Like, I had a faith moment today. I went to Walmart and I knew it was Black Friday. So I stepped out in some faith. I was going to get that TV for $99. No, that's not a faith moment. Your first faith moment is surrendering your life to Jesus. That activates your faith, right? I surrender my life to Jesus, my first real faith moment. Then comes the faith moments that follow. Now think of this, again, in perspective. Your first faith moment, you give your life to Jesus, and the first thing he says is to sacrifice your son. How's that probably going to go for any of y'all? Like, Jesus, I just stepped out and said, I believe you and trust you, and now you want me to take out my son. I haven't even read the Bible yet. I don't know if I can trust this perspective that you're trying to show me. But what do we see in Abraham? What do we see in his moment? I want you to hear this. In Genesis 12, the story starts. We're going to go through it all. We're not going to cover every verse, but Genesis 12, 1 through 3 says, the Lord has said to Abram, go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. I will make you a great nation, and I'll bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I'll bless those who bless you. Whoever curses you, I will curse. And all the people, everybody get that? Who's all the people? You all the people, just so you know. All the people on earth will be blessed through you. Whoo! What just occurred here? God put a proposal in front of Abraham, which means, one, he had faith. The leaving your country is the first faith. The first faith is that really God talking to me? You got to understand that. Because haven't we all heard voices before? I mean, not the crazy voices. I'm talking about some normal voices, right? Like when you're thinking that I could really be really good at this eating competition, right? I've heard that voice in my head. Maybe for some of you, it's like, I know I can do that. But I'm talking, he heard a voice that said, hey. So he had to have the faith to believe that God is literally talking to him. First step, our first step, that Jesus Christ is literally who he says, and I have the faith to stand on that. Boom. Then God doesn't stop with just, oh, hey, thank you. You believed in me. That's all you need. God says, okay, here's what I want you to do, Abraham. Let's establish this. Abram is 75. His wife is 65. And he's doing well off where he's at. He's not like going on the corners begging for money. He's actually doing quite well. He has a living 75. We have some 75 years old here. Don't raise your hand. Some of you already forgot, so I don't want to remind you. Terrible. But within that, he actually says to a 75-year-old, here, this is what I want you to do. I want to give up everything you have. You have no kids. I want you to walk away from all your security, and I want you to go on a hike. And I want you to head out in territory you've never been into. Go out into the wilderness. I'm going to give you all that, and it's going to be great. Listen, I won't go in my woods in Texas because there might be snakes out there. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll go hunting with you, but what kind of stand we in? Is it like 4 or 5 feet off the ground? Because, if you're on the ground, man, those things come right on in. What kind of way do we? That's a pretty big question. God asked me that question like 9 years after giving my life to Jesus. He said, well, you willing to quit and move and do what I ask you to do? He asked that question like the first time he had a conversation. Hey, do you believe I'm talking to you? Yeah. By the way, I need you to quit everything at 75 and just go ahead and take off. Start hiking, dude. I'll show you. And what does Abram do in an act of faith? He does that. That was a first step, though. Do you know he never went out and said, hey, go ahead and do something that you would probably never do on a first step? Sometimes we come into faith and we're like, oh, what God's asking me to do right now is too hard. I'm about to tell you something. He doesn't start with the hardest. So get ready for your ride if you're sitting there going, oh, Lord, I just heard what you just said, Simon. Are you trying to tell me what he's asking me right now after giving my life to Jesus is going to not be the hardest thing he asked me? Correct. He doesn't start out with your hardest challenge and your very first challenge. Why? Because you haven't even read the word yet, possibly. You haven't even been around fellow believers, and they will check you more than anything else in life. So here's the promise. Your first step of faith is just the beginning, and it's not your hardest. For some of you, this is not exciting. For your other ones, like, oh, okay. So if I just start doing this, what's going to happen? Well, I'm going to tell you. Here's something that should bring all of us joy. Everyone stumbles in their walk of faith. Everyone. Okay, remember, I just declared Abraham the man of faith, right? Abraham, the guy that in the Bible gets called the man of faith, the one we all go to, the man of faith. So obviously, when he walked out, he was assured of faith. He already took all God's promises as they were, and he stood out and went, yes, nothing can come against me. There's nothing I got to worry about. God's got me. He did that right away, right? Except for we know when we read the Bible, and one of the most important things for me when I read the Bible was they're like telling real stories. It isn't like this perfect dude that never makes a mistake and does everything God tells him. They're telling stories about these guys that have amazing moments that I've never even dreamed about having with God, and then they go off and screw it up anyways. And yet then they keep going, and God keeps loving them and gives them more chances, and then they keep doing better things. Well, this sounds a lot like my life. My parents loved me. I kept doing stupid things. They kept loving me anyways and giving me more chances. I kind of get this. You mean this is attainable? I could be a man of faith? We see Genesis 12, 10 through 13. That's what we're going to move to. We're going to jump all the way to 10. How do we see him stumbling in faith? I'm going to show you some of these. And when I say stumbling in faith, do you guys realize when you stumble in faith, it doesn't mean you lost faith and it's gone, and you got to re-look for it in the closet again? Like, oh, I wonder where that faith went. I'll never see it again. No, you still have faith. You're just stumbling a little bit in it. You're just getting your knees bruised up. You're getting a little, what do they call it? We send our kids out. When I grew up, we got sent out from night to dawn, right? That was what time you got to be home? When it's dark. Okay. You get sent out on the bike and you came home and you were bleeding. Like if my new kids, they start bleeding, there's a chance they might not survive. We need antiseptic. We need alcohol rubs. We need Band-Aids, and we might need to go to the doctor. I don't know. It's just a little cut. Back when I was growing up, you come walk in, just blood coming down your ear. There'd be a cut here, and they're like, yeah, you're good. Go take a shower. Nobody remember those days at all? Yeah, I didn't even know what a seatbelt was until they made me wear them in the 20s. I didn't know you could literally survive riding a bike without a helmet. And if you saw what I did, you should know that God was obviously with me a lot when I was on my bike, because that's how I traveled. So we look at Genesis 12, 10 through 13. It says, now there was a famine in the land, and Abram went down to Egypt. So Abraham went to the place, and it's actually good. He's like, oh, this is good. I've not been attacked. I'm doing well. I'm already doing well. This is great. But there's a famine that comes in. You know how the enemy would come against you to try to point something out to you that maybe cause you concern and question your faith? So what does he do? He goes down to Egypt to live there. You know, every time the Jews go down to Egypt, it really turns out great, doesn't it? Don't stay in the land that they're promised. They love to leave, you know what I'm saying? No, it's not. But he goes, as he was about to enter Egypt, he said to his wife, Sarai, whatever you want to say, I know what a beautiful woman you are. When the Egyptians see you, they will say, this is my wife. Then they will kill me, but let you live. Say you are my sister, so I'll be treated well for your sake, and my life will be spared. He gave him a promise that all people will be blessed through him, and he thinks God's going to allow him to be taken out before he even has a kid. So obviously that's really big faith, right? No. I want you to even add this up, and this is not being mean in any way, but I got tickled by it. Abram's 75, and he's worried that his hot 65-year-old wife is going to be taken from him because the king just saw the most beautiful woman in the world and was going to basically kill him over his 65-year-old wife. You get more beautiful the more you age. How's that? But wouldn't be the top. I'm thinking, I don't know what she was eating, but it was right. I don't know what exercises she was doing. I don't know what was going on. But at 65, this girl was so gorgeous that if a king dare see her, he was going to kill her husband to have her. Keep that in your mind. Keep praying. Lord, keep this look like this when I'm 65. Please, Lord. I want challenges. So we see that Abraham does this. It does not mean his faith was gone, because otherwise the story would end here. You guys get that? The story would end here if his faith was gone. But it doesn't. And he has this moment where God has to fix it. Because what happens when we screw up? Especially in God's plan. When we screw up God's plan, what happens? He's got to come in and do something, does he not? what does God do? He comes in and he's like, hey, I'm going to bless Abraham in his not too brilliance because, Abraham left with more wealth and more items than he did when he went there. Even though he lied to the Pharaoh and almost had the whole Pharaoh's household killed, he somehow leaves with more than he came with. So this is not a principle for any of y'all to follow. Even when you do dumb things, God could still bless you. Do not take that as your aspect to try something dumb. I'm just saying he seemed to lose some faith in the promises and lost his eye just for a moment and made a decision. It doesn't seem like he trusts God. And yet God still came in, took care of him, blessed him, and sent him back out. And now you would think that no matter what, this must be the last time he ever does this, right? I mean, there's no way after this, Abram knows, listen, I did something stupid. God protected me within it, and he blessed me bigger coming out. So there's no way that he would ever do this again, because when we learn our lessons, right, guys, and we have a new level of faith, we'll never slip again, right? No! He does this exact same thing again, except for this time his wife is in her 80s. I want you to check that even more than the 65. And when his wife is 80, he's like, oh, we're going back. Okay, we're going to go here. The king is going to come for you. You are still so smoking hot that literally if he sees you, he's going to kill my 90-year-old self because he's got to have you. I don't understand it because you can't even have babies or anything. At 80, I'm thinking maybe a little bend over, maybe no. Maybe you don't have, like you go to bed early and get up early. Why is that? That's not a promise I ever wanted from God, that I got to keep getting up earlier and going to bed earlier. I thought it'd be opposite, like I could stay up longer and not need as much sleep, but no, it just changes. So we have that moment. And you're like, wait a second, he did it twice. And what happens at the end of that one? He gets sent out with more than he came back with. He gets 1,000 shekels of silver because the king goes, the God comes to the king and says, hey, you better not touch that. Sarah's mine, and through this promise I have, you're not allowed to touch him. And he's like, why'd they lie to me? Why? And he sends him out with 1,000 shekels of silver and sends him back out. Well, Abram, he's not going to make any more of these mistakes, right? Well, in the process, remember that God's promise was that Abram was going to be the founding father of all the stars in the skies, right? But he has no kids. And there's a promise to him that you can't do that without kids. You guys know that, right? I know there's. And they decide, him and his wife, that they've gotten too old. Like nobody has babies at this age. And he's like, well, most men don't either. And she's like, well, we got one shot. You can take my slave. Was that God's plan? Because I don't see anywhere in there that was God's plan. So where was his faith that no matter what, if he just waited for what God was going to do, it was going to happen? Have you ever stepped out and said, God, I know this is your plan for me, but I'm going to do it because you haven't met it yet. You haven't got me that spot. I'm going to help it along and take my way there? If you haven't done it yet, you haven't been Christian long enough. Or you don't remember what you were before you were Christian. Because I know a lot of times I get in front of God. And it's usually a trip down or sit down that he's got to do for me. And then I look and go, yeah, I wasn't supposed to do that way. Was I got, no, you weren't. Yeah. Like if I did it later, would it probably work? Yeah, but yeah, you did it when you weren't supposed to. Okay, gotcha. Well, can we not tell anybody else about this? That's like, you don't want the pastor to have too many of those, right? I'm like, can we just keep this between us? Like you just told me your plans change or something? I mean, I have these conversations. But we all sometimes get ahead of what God's plans even are for us. His promises for us, we get ahead of them and go, well, I can't wait no more, God. I got to have it now because it should have already occurred. And if I can just get, I'll help you, God. I will help you, God, and we can get there faster. And God's like, you ain't ready yet. Because at the end of this, what we talk about, there was a moment that God was going to ask him of something that would take the most faith of anybody I've ever heard do, and he doesn't even have the faith yet to trust he's going to have a kid. Do you realize that's why yet he hasn't probably had Isaac? He doesn't even have the faith yet to wait to have Isaac. And God knows what he's going to ask him after he has him, correct? So how are you going to meet? Sometimes our needs and our wants are so strong, yet we're not ready for them, and God protects you by holding you back. We don't like that conversation, do we? But God, I'm so ready for this ministry. I'm so ready for this. But you can't talk to your spouse. And how are you going to do a marriage? Lord's really pressed on me a marriage ministry. Yeah. I'm excited he has. Like, you're going to be, I'm passionate about marriages. How about your own? No? Okay, well, I think we work on plan A, and then when we get that done, then we can work on you doing this great, amazing ministry. But it's like, not being mean, it's like having a physical fit teacher that runs 480. And he's going to tell you how to lose weight. Would that be the first one you signed up for? Probably might be the best one. I'm not saying they might not be the best one. They might have the best information. But when you look at a picture, do I want marriage from somebody that's on their 4th divorce? Like, dude, that guy has done this 4 times. He knows what he's doing by now. That's the one I'm going to get. I know the pastor and his wife have been married the whole time and they love each other still, but you know what? That one there has done it 4 times. That's 4 times. By now he knows all the secrets. Is that what we do? No, we want to go to the source. So we just got to trust God that if he hasn't done it yet, even though it's a promise, that there's a reason behind it. And it's beyond our understanding. And when we push that, we have to understand we have a problem. Because now we're putting conditions on God. I think God has protected me more on holding me back than he's done anything else in protection. I've had great things that I thought needed to be done, and he's held me back and held me back. And then when they were right timing, right place, they had amazing results that had nothing to do with me. It's a lot about making sure I don't get prideful and get my own attitude on what's happening. Like, oh, I had such a good idea. Man, we killed it at church with that idea. I had a lot of good ideas, and they all went, and then he gave me some ideas, and they went, whoop, and I'm like, man, can I just get one, God? I'm like, God gave me 14,000 ideas, and then he let me have one, and they all were really good, you know. It's just a process. He is our leader. Next, faith is always something that will challenge you. Listen, we all want faith, but we don't want the challenges that come with it. Like, if I gave you $1 million a week, how would your faith be about being able to eat every day? You wouldn't have. You'd be like, I'll feed everybody. What happens if I told you you're not getting paid for the next 2 months? Would you still have the same faith that you're going to eat every day? See, the challenge is what develops it. Let's look at Genesis 14:11 through 20, and I'm going to run through that one. It's a little longer. If you remember that we're past a little time, we're at the point where just right before Sodom and Gomorrah, we're at Genesis 4. It says the 4 kings, there's 5 kings that came at war with the 4 kings. And Sodom and Gomorrah were the 5 kings, which is more than 4, we all know. But the 4 kings win, I think pretty easily. As the 5 flee, it says the 4 kings seized all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah and all their food, then they went away. They also carried off Abram's nephew Lot and his possessions, since he was living in Sodom. A man who had escaped came and reported this to Abram the Hebrew. Now Abram was living near the great trees of Mamre the Amorite, and the brother of Eshcol and Abner, all of whom were allied with Abram. And it says, when Abram heard that his relative had been taken captive, he called out the 318 trained men born in his household and went in pursuit as far as Dan. He heard it said that 4 kings' armies, 4 of them, that just routed 5 kings' armies, had taken his nephew and their stuff, and he gathers 318 men and says, we're going to go get them. We're going to take this little group of men, and we're going to go take everything back from these 4 kings and their armies. Who's signing up for that run? I'm personally, I'm like, oh, this sounds great. Then it goes on and says, he routed them. So during the night, Abram divided his men to attack them, and he routed them and pursuing them as far as Hobah, north of Damascus. He recovered all the goods and brought back his relative Lot and his possessions together with the women and other people. Not only did he go overtake a larger group, not only did he do it in the nighttime with the group, he brought back all the prisoners as well. He brought all their possessions back. And it says, after Abram returned from defeating Kedorlaomer and the kings allied with him, the king of Sodom came out to meet him in the valley of Sheba, which that is the king's valley. Then Mechazah, oh man, I am never using this post again. I know I've said it so many. King of Salem brought out bread and wine. He was the priest of God Most High, and he blessed Abram, saying, Blessed be Abram by God Most High, creator of the heaven and earth, and praise be to God Most High, who delivered your enemies into your hand. Then Abram gave him a tenth of everything. Abram had the faith to go do something, but who did the doing? The Lord. Sometimes we think, oh, that was pretty crazy of him. No, God delivered the enemies to him. See, your faith is just an activation for God to do what he's already said. And so when he went and they got there, that could be overwhelming. If I showed up with 317 of my best friends that we're going to go fight, and I look at an army of 4 kings and know that my nephew's in there who has not been that great with me, but still alive, yeah, the life might not be that good, but he is kicking. I might go, you know what? He's going to be all right. He should have stayed with me. No, he goes in and takes these men and takes back what was theirs. And we get the credit to God. Challenges will be something hard. You see it throughout the Bible. We see it with Gideon, right? You have too many, you have too many, you have too many. God wants the glory and the credit. He doesn't want you. If we start thinking of what we did and how we did it, then we start forgetting about how he can do something above and beyond that. And so when I say the challenges, if it's not a challenge, you'll take credit for you. Oh, I did really good doing this because I'm really good at it. Well, did God help you? Well, he did. I mean, he gave me the skill. So we start forgetting very quickly about who is giving us and providing for us. The next point and the last point is, as faith grows, so will the challenges. As faith grows. So we have this challenge that he had to go off with 318 men and take back against an army of 4 kings. Well, in Genesis 17, it follows up. At 99, he had to get circumcised. For some of you, you're like, whoop-de-doo. For some of you in this room, you're like, that is an act of faith. You know what I'm saying? Great act of faith. Like, can we just do the Isaac thing first? That might have been me, right? Act of faith. In Genesis 18, it says, he actually argues for the safety of Lot and any possible righteous people with the Lord. How many of you know when the Lord was there, if he said he's going to go take care of something, you'd probably go, yes, sir. Yes, Lord, you're right. What does Abram build up in him? He said, look, can we just say, if there's 50, can we say 50? Now, that's pretty bold, right? And God's like, sure. And I think he went, oh, crud monkeys. Kind of like me when I get a good deal. I'm like, shoot, I should have went better. And he goes, okay. What about 45? He gets all the way, he keeps going back and forth with Lord all the way down to 10. That's a challenge, but God doesn't tell him, stop talking to me. God doesn't, he lets him work, and he has a faith that he can talk with a God he has a relationship with. Come on, let's figure we have a God you can talk to and have difficult conversations with, and he's good, and he cares about you, and he's going to allow you to talk. Now, he stopped him at 10. Let me tell you this, though. There wasn't 10. Like 4. And they weren't even 4. And they weren't even, the 4 was just a favor but we're not going to get into all that right there. So that what we see that. And in 20, we talked 21, Isaac is born, and God has Abraham send his other son away, Ishmael. I don't know. So God says, listen to Sarah. You're telling Sarah, saying, Ishmael and the slave wife got to go. This is your son, right? We have a lot of relationships today. I have a stepson. A lot of us have stepkids. You know, telling the parent that is like, if I went to my wife and said, hey, Keith's got to go. I just had Nick. He's got to go. God comes and tells him, listen, I'm telling you right now, I've got Ishmael covered. He's going to be a nation that's going to be great and it's going to multiply, and I got him covered. Could you, again, start with that test of faith? Oh, hey, you just came to the Lord? This is great. I'm going to need you to send your stepson away and tell your wife that. I know you've been married for all of a year, but could you go ahead and do that for me real quick? We'd probably say no, right? Like, Lord, that's not the plan. But he trusted God because God spoke to him in that moment. We've moved this step of faith all the way up to the spot where when God tells him to send his stepson away because he has a promise that he's keeping, and that his promise is he's going to bless his stepson in such a way that it's going to be huge, he's like, he says he's disappointed or he struggles, but he does it again. See how his faith has continued to move on something harder and harder? He loved his son. There's no doubt about it. In fact, even at his death, Ishmael comes back and buries Sarah, Ishmael comes back. He doesn't disappear from the picture completely, is what I'm saying. But he does disappear in such a way that he's no longer with them. And Ishmael is only 14, guys. I mean, I could send an 18-year-old away, no problem. I'm like, yeah, good luck, right? But a 14-year-old, I can't. I mean, so he does this. These challenges grow by the time. The challenges grow. And then we see it, Genesis 22. Sometime later, it says, sometime later, God tested Abraham. He said to him, Abraham, here I am, he replied. Then God said, take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah, sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on the mountain I will show you. Here comes the big test of faith. It's been built up, built up, built up. He stumbled and falled, built up. He stumbled and falled again, built up. He stumbled and falled again, built up for the big act of faith. What does Abram do? It doesn't say he argued with God. I bet there's tears coming down. He got up, got 2 servants, collected some donkeys, got some wood, and took off. That's what he did. During that process, just so you know, that was in 1 and 2. In verse 5, when they get there, he says to the servant, stay here with the donkey while I and the boy go over there. We will worship, and then we will come back to you. Wait a second. We will come back to you? In verse 8, it says, Abraham answered, God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son. And the 2 of them went on together. See, Abraham remembered before, I think, when he screwed up and thought that he had to say his wife was his sister, not his wife, because he didn't have the protection. Now he's walking on, he goes, I remember God's promises that through my son, nations are going to go, and I can go up there because you want to know why? Because his promises are true. I'm coming back with my son. But I'm going to walk out what God tells me. I don't know how God's going to do it. I don't know what process he's going to use, but I can trust that God will do it. Because he says it with his own words. We will worship and we will come back. He did not go back there thinking that God was going to sacrifice his son and that was the end of the story. He went up there going, I'm going to come back actually with my son, just so you servants know. And then when he got up there and his son realized something wasn't right, he turned to his son and said, God will provide. Not God may provide. Oh, I really hope so. I'm really counting on this. But God will provide. That's his response. That should encourage you. God will provide, and he's going to get to a point where you're going to have to trust him even when the world, even when everything else would make you feel like he's not. If you're standing on his promise, his real promise, not a promise to be rich, other than rich in him, but I'm talking about his promises that he has what's best for you, that he loves you dearly, that he is for you, he'll never leave you, that in the worst situations and your biggest, dumbest mistakes, he is still madly and passionately in love with you. That, you grab a hold of that, everything else will start melting away. That is the promise. And that's what Abraham just depends. He goes, I trust you so much, God, and I trust you so much that the promises you gave me, there's no way you're not going to make this somehow work. So I'm going to do it because I've stopped not doing what I'm supposed to do when I'm trusting you. That's why he's a man of faith. He went from to here to what? Okay, let's go. What do you mean, let's go? Let's go. I trust God. And that is the man of faith that we're working for. But I want you to look at it again. Did it occur at the first time God spoke to him? No. He would never have been ready for that act right away. It took a process. And it's not a short process. He was 75. It took 25 years before he even had Isaac. Then it took 14 years after that before. We're talking a 39-year of faith before he could ask that question. Some of y'all haven't known Jesus for 39 years. Some of you have. I haven't. Promise you this. There's more faith questions coming after for you. And I want you to get excited about that. So what does this mean for you? What does this mean for you as we go through this living faith journey? Let's just read Hebrews 11:13. All these people, we're talking about the heroes of faith, The men of faith, the women of faith in the Bible. Just go to read Hebrews 11. It's encouraging. It's all about having faith. And the heroes of faith, the Hall of Fame of faith. And it says all these people were still living by faith when they died. You're not promised immortality here on earth. You're promised immortality in heaven with him. Next it says, they did not receive the things promised. They only saw them and welcomed them from a distance, admitting that they were foreigners and strangers on this earth. This is not your final place. We almost want it to be for some unknown reason. It is not your destination. I want you to realize when you pray for healing, I believe we got the answer that God was going to give us. He healed Luan completely. Not the way I wanted, though, and not the way I understand. But he healed her completely. And she's in heaven, the exact spot that I almost want to get to, but I want to be like Paul and say, I won't go yet because you have a plan for me. But let me tell you, don't bring me back from heaven. If I'm with the Father, I'm pretty dang happy. That is actually where I want to go. And when we want earth to be where we want to go, we're always going to be walking through troubles and faults. It does not mean we don't pray for healing, because I'm going to still do it. I prayed with such faith, and I believed. I was shocked on that day. I honestly I didn't even think twice about it. In fact, I made plans to coach basketball tournaments during that time. I'm like, well, she's coming home. This is Luan. She's coming home. Because I believed. And then when it didn't happen, where's my faith? Because I know where my faith is on a rock. I went, oh, God had a different plan that I could not see. This hurts. This is frustrating. But I trust in him alone. And I can walk this out because he's going to be with me with it. And that my faith won't be shattered because the enemy used something that, oh, am I supposed to be really mad she's with Jesus right now? Oh, this just makes me so mad. You took her to be with you. Why is that? Oh, wait a second. That's where I want to go. Shoot. It doesn't mean we don't hurt inside, but I want us to get that our destination. These people of faith, it was not because they received the promise of what God had. It's not because they even got to do everything he said. It's that they held on to what his promises were, and the destination was not here. So no matter what you're going through, if you can hang on to the promise of what Jesus promises, a completely healed body in his timing, in his period, and when it comes, you'll never have to do anything ever again. As in the aspect of sickness, you won't be angry, you're going to be full of joy, you're going to be able to worship, your body's. That is what you hang on to, and that will get you through anything. That's faith. Get your eyes off what's here. Here is messy. So here's what I'm going to leave you with. And this is what our journey is going to start with. You can use it as a challenge or whatever you want. Living faith is a journey with highs and lows. Knee scrapes and cuts, abundance and scarcity, but comes with a testing that will grow and mold your faith and bring you closer to your Father. Be excited about this journey. Be excited about living on faith because it all has a purpose. I'm going in beat up. You're like, why do you want to be beat up? I want to be beat up for the gospel. I want never to surrender his truth. I want that no matter what the enemy would throw at me, whether I was limping in, sliding in dirt, if I have no clothes or I have the nicest clothes, I don't care. I'm going to him. And this is a journey, and in my faith is going to be nothing more than growing towards him in all times. And molding's hard. You want God to get a hold of you and start squeezing out that good stuff out of you? At times it's hard, but it's always for our betterment. And so, as we do this week, we're going to break down faith as an acronym. We're going to go after what faith is and how if we take our faith and put it into these things, these basic building stones, we're going to wreck people. We're going to wreck ourselves. We're going to talk about forgiveness and love. We're going to talk about the inerrancy of the word so you can have the trust. We're going to talk about testimonies, and we're going to be talking about healing. All these promises that faith dwells out through. So I hope you make it. Stay connected. Every week there's going to be another thing you can go on, watch them. Don't miss them. We are building a living faith that we're going to we walk in faith. We talk in faith. We believe in faith. And no thunderstorm, no windstorm, no hurricane, no poorness, no not eating is going to be able to shake the foundations we stand on because we have a living faith. And that's Jesus Christ, and he's alive. today. So if you're here and you've never surrendered your life to Jesus, or you've been running from Jesus for too long, there's an opportunity right now to give your life to Jesus. Not so somebody else can see you do it, not because you think this is the only way into heaven, but because you need this living faith. You need this journey that God's going to take. You need what he's going to do in your life, because we all need it. That you're going to surrender your wants and your desires and line them up with God's heart and God's desires. And it might seem like, oh, that doesn't seem right, but I'm going to tell you, since I've done it, I've been more happy, more full of joy, more fulfilled, more just blessed than I've ever been in my life when I separated my wants and went with his wants. This is a good thing. And so if you're here today and you don't know why you came and this is the reason, fantastic. Is there anybody here that wants to surrender their life to Jesus or return to him today? I can say raise you can stand, you can raise your hand, you could dance, I don't care. But this is an amazing moment because you're coming back and you're surrendering yourself. Is there anybody here today? All right. We never leave without sharing that good news. And here's the one thing I want to encourage you. Share it at home. Share it with your kids. Share it with your sisters and brothers, your parents, your cousins. Share it with your coworkers. Be the light. Share, share, share. You have people get sick of how much Jesus is in you. Because they're not really sick of Jesus. They're sick of their own sin. Be kind. Be loving. Be forgiving. But show them Jesus. The world desperately needs him. And I've been done by now, but I'm waiting for Crutches Lady to get up here to sing. Now here's the truth. We're gonna pray. We are going to go out on a worship song, and then you're free to leave. I'm going to give opportunity. If anybody needs prayer, you can come up and receive prayer. I'm going to come down. The bakers are going to come stand up here. They didn't know they were, but they're going to now. Who else wants to pray? I'm trying not to get anybody in trouble. Julie, you want to pray for Mike? You want to pray for people? Or Julie, you want to pray for people? I'm crazy like that. Go on this side, and I'll stay in the middle, and that's enough, people. We're going to listen. If you need prayer for the smallest thing or the biggest thing, do it. Come up. God's willing to cure the hiccups. He's willing to cure cancer. He's willing to restore your friendships with your spouse, with your family. He's willing to break off addictions. He's willing to do it all. It just takes your first step of faith to start walking it out and see what happens. Father, I thank you for who you are. I thank you that we're going to walk out something crazy. I want to be known as the crazy living faith church. Those people that continue to step out in faith and just act crazy, professing your goodness and who you are, despite what some might see. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.